The vastness of space held many secrets, but none quite like the one the Galactic Empire stumbled upon in their 7,000th year of peaceful expansion. Their scout ships, gleaming with purple-tinted metal and powered by fusion drives, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edges of an unremarkable solar system. The lead scout, Captain White, stood on his bridge with 4 arms crossed over his chest, watching the holographic display of the third planet from the sun. His sensors indicated signs of civilization, but nothing that should worry the mighty empire. The planet's inhabitants still used fossil fuels, and their space presence was limited to their own solar system. Another simple conquest, White muttered to himself, his scaled skin reflecting the soft light of the bridge. He had overseen 17 peaceful additions to the empire, and this would be his 18th. The procedure was always the same: show up, demonstrate superior technology, and watch as the primitive species joined the empire willingly. Back on Earth, deep within the Rocky Mountains, alarms blared through the command center of the Earth Defense Force. General James stood before a wall of screens, his weathered face illuminated by the red warning lights. The integrated defense network had detected the alien ships the moment they entered the solar system. "Show me what we're dealing with," James ordered, his voice calm despite the situation. The main screen filled with detailed scans of the alien vessels. Their technology was advanced, but not incomprehensible. Years of preparing for this moment were about to pay off. The alien ships moved closer, taking position just beyond Mars' orbit. Their communication arrays activated, broadcasting in multiple frequencies. Earth's computers worked quickly to decode the message. "People of Earth," the translation read, "we are the Galactic Empire, rulers of 10,000 worlds. We bring civilization and order to the galaxy. You have 2 standard rotations to accept our generous offer of membership, or we will be forced to demonstrate our power." Admiral Reed, sitting in his underground office in Geneva, read the message with a slight smile. The aliens had made the same mistake that so many Earth-bound empires had made throughout history. They had assumed technological superiority meant assured victory. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered virtually, their faces showing a mix of concern and determination. They had planned for this day, had built their defenses in secret, and had maintained the appearance of a divided planet precisely for this moment. "Let them come closer," Reed suggested during the meeting. "Let them think we're primitive. Let them think we're scared." The Empire's delegation arrived in a small shuttle, landing in a designated area outside New York. They emerged in their ornate armor, standing twice as tall as the human welcoming committee. Their leader, Commander Gold, looked down at the humans with 4 eyes that blinked in sequence. "We are impressed you maintained atmospheres suitable for life," Gold said through a translator, his attempt at complimenting humanity coming across as condescending. "Your species shows promise as servants of the Empire." The human delegation, led by Ambassador Brown, maintained pleasant smiles. They had expected this attitude. Every hidden defense system tracked the alien shuttle. Every word was recorded and analyzed. And beneath the surface, Earth's military machine was quietly coming to life. "We are honored by your presence," Brown replied, following the script perfectly. "However, before we proceed, we would like to share some information about our species." Gold waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "We have studied your kind. You fight among yourselves. You pollute your world, and your technology is primitive. We will fix these problems." In orbit, Captain White watched the proceedings with satisfaction. His sensors showed nothing but obsolete satellites and space stations. The humans' most advanced weapons were simple nuclear devices, nothing that could threaten Imperial shields. What his sensors couldn't detect were the quantum-encrypted communications flowing between Earth's nations, the advanced weapon platforms hidden in asteroid fields, or the fact that those obsolete satellites were actually highly sophisticated weapon systems disguised to look primitive. As the first day of first contact drew to a close, Humanity prepared to teach the Empire a lesson about judging a species by its apparent level of technology. The Empire had never fought a war with humans before, and they were about to learn why that had been a good thing. In their command centers across the globe, Earth's military leaders began executing their long-prepared plans. The warning they would soon give the Empire was simple: run. In the Grand Meeting Hall of the United Nations, General Smith stood before the Imperial delegation. The room was filled with tension as holographic screens flickered to life around them. Commander Gold and his fellow Imperial representatives sat with poorly hidden boredom, their four eyes blinking in that peculiar sequence the humans had learned indicated mild annoyance. "Before you make any final decisions about Earth," Smith began, his voice steady and calm, "we believe you should understand something about human history." He pressed a button on his remote, and the screens filled with images of ancient battles. The first images showed Roman legions, their formations perfect, their discipline legendary. "This was us, 3,000 years ago," Smith explained. "We were already masters of organized warfare before we had electricity." The Imperial delegates shifted uncomfortably as they watched the precise military movements. The presentation continued through history. Medieval knights charged across battlefields. Mongol horsemen demonstrated their mastery of mobile warfare. Ships of the line exchanged broadsides in great naval battles. With each image, the Imperial representative's posture became increasingly rigid. And then, Smith continued, "We industrialized war." The screens filled with scenes from World War I and II. Tanks rolled across battlefields. Planes darkened the skies. Ships that could sink enemies beyond the horizon demonstrated human ingenuity in the art of combat. Commander Gold raised one of his four hands. "These are primitive weapons," he declared, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "We have seen many species with violent histories." Smith smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The difference, Commander, is that we never stopped improving." New images appeared. Modern warfare, precision strikes, stealth technology. While you were building your peaceful empire, we were preparing for threats we hadn't even met yet. The screen showed submarine launches, invisible aircraft, and satellite systems. What you see in orbit, Commander, what you dismiss as primitive, those aren't our limitations. They're our choice of what to show you. The Imperial delegation whispered among themselves in their clicking language. Their universal translators were turned off, but human intelligence had already cracked their basic communication codes. They were nervous. "Your species fights itself," one of the Imperial scientists noted, trying to sound dismissive. "This shows lack of unity, weakness." "No," Smith corrected, his voice taking on an edge. "It shows that we've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against opponents who think exactly like we do. We fought ourselves, learned from ourselves, adapted to ourselves. Can you say the same?" New holographic displays showed Earth's current military capabilities, not the decoy systems the Empire had detected, but the real ones. Quantum-shielded bases, nano-weapon factories, AI-driven defense systems that operated on principles the Empire hadn't even theorized yet. "We're showing you this," Smith explained, "because we don't want war. We've seen enough of it. We know what it costs. We're giving you this warning because we respect life, even if we're very, very good at ending it." Commander Gold stood up, his full height impressive, but no longer intimidating. "Are you threatening the Galactic Empire?" he demanded, but there was uncertainty in his voice. "No," Smith replied quietly. "We're warning you. There's a difference. We're telling you to look at our history, look at what we can do, and make an informed decision. We're willing to join your empire as equals, to share our knowledge and become partners in peace. But if you force us to fight..." He let the sentence hang. The screen showed one final image, a simulation of what would happen if Earth's real military capability was unleashed against the Empire's ships. The Imperial delegation watched in silence as their most advanced defenses were bypassed by weapons they hadn't known were possible. "You have 2 days to consider your options," Smith concluded. "You can leave and tell your empire that Earth is not to be conquered. You can stay and talk about peaceful cooperation. Or you can try to fight, in which case," he pointed to the simulation still playing on the screens, "this will seem like a pleasant alternative to what actually happens." As the Imperial delegation filed out of the room, their earlier arrogance replaced by thoughtful concern, Smith watched them go. He knew they wouldn't listen. Empires never did. But at least they couldn't say they hadn't been warned. In orbit, Earth's real defense grid silently tracked every movement of the Imperial ships, waiting for the inevitable moment when diplomacy would fail and history would repeat itself, just on a much larger scale. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their 10,000 ships arranged in the classic spear pattern that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Admiral Black of the Empire stood on his command bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his view screen. The humans' warning had been dismissed as the empty threats of a primitive species. "Begin the standard subjugation protocol," Black commanded, his 4 arms operating different control panels simultaneously. The fleet's first wave moved forward, their weapons charging with a purple glow that had become synonymous with Imperial might across the galaxy. In the hidden command center beneath Mount Baker, Admiral Reed watched the Imperial fleet's approach with practiced calm. "Let them get closer," he ordered, while Earth's real defense grid remained invisible to Imperial scans. The trap was nearly ready. The first Imperial shots were meant to disable Earth's visible satellite network. Their energy beams lanced out, destroying what they thought were Earth's primary communication systems. Admiral Black allowed himself a smile of satisfaction. That smile vanished when his sensors suddenly went dark. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, quantum-linked EMP devices activated simultaneously, creating a web of electromagnetic disruption that Imperial shields had never been designed to handle. The Empire's advanced targeting systems, dependent on quantum calculations, began showing impossible readings. "What's happening?" Black demanded, watching as his fleet's formation began to break down in confusion. Before anyone could answer, the real attack began. Asteroids that the Imperial scans had dismissed as natural debris suddenly revealed themselves to be massive rail-gun platforms. They opened fire with projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, their simple kinetic energy overwhelming the Empire's energy-based defensive shields. "Impossible," Black shouted as the first wave of his ships began exploding. "Their technology is primitive. Their weapons are basic." That's when Earth's actual military spacecraft decloaked. They weren't the clunky rockets the Empire had observed, but sleek vessels using gravity manipulation technology that the Empire had never considered possible. They moved in ways that defied Imperial tactical computers, using maneuvers that no sane species would attempt. "They're inside our formation," Black's second-in-command screamed. The human ships had somehow appeared within the Imperial fleet's defensive sphere, attacking from positions that should have been impossible to reach. Earth's ships fought unlike anything the Empire had encountered. Where Imperial doctrine called for organized, predictable patterns, the humans seemed to operate on controlled chaos. Each ship fought independently, yet somehow maintained a coordinated assault that Imperial computers couldn't predict. "Launch fighters," Black ordered, deploying the Empire's autonomous combat drones. The machines, guided by advanced AI, should have easily overwhelmed the human vessels. Instead, the human ships released clouds of what appeared to be simple metal dust. The Imperial drones flew into these clouds only to discover they were actually swarms of microscopic robots that invaded their systems through any available opening. Within minutes, the entire drone fleet had been compromised. Admiral Reed watched from his command center as the battle unfolded exactly as their simulations had predicted. "Execute Phase 2, he ordered calmly. The Empire's remaining ships suddenly found themselves targeted by weapons hidden on Earth's moon. What the Imperial scans had dismissed as simple craters were actually massive mass drivers, accelerating chunks of lunar rock to speeds that turned them into planet-killing projectiles. Full retreat, Admiral Black finally ordered, but his fleet was in chaos. The humans had somehow merged simple kinetic weapons with advanced technology in ways that Imperial defenses had never been designed to handle. Their doctrine, perfected over thousands of years of peaceful expansion, had no answers for humanity's combination of primitive and advanced warfare. As the Imperial fleet attempted to withdraw, they discovered another nasty surprise. The humans had seeded their retreat vectors with gravitational mines, simple devices that used the Empire's own faster-than-light technology against them. Ships attempting to flee found their drives overloading, stranding them in normal space. "Send the distress signal," Black commanded, watching as his mighty fleet was systematically taken apart by what he had dismissed as a primitive species. "Warn the Empire. Tell them we were wrong." The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When it was over, the greatest fleet in Imperial history had been reduced to scattered debris and disabled vessels. Humanity's first interstellar battle had ended in victory, but Admiral Reed knew this was just the beginning. "Send them our message again," he ordered as rescue ships moved to collect Imperial survivors. Just one word: run. Operation Thunderbolt began 3 days after humanity's defensive victory. The Earth Defense Fleet, hidden from Imperial sensors until now, emerged from their quantum-cloaked hangars around Jupiter. 5,000 ships, each one combining the best of human military innovation, formed up for humanity's first interstellar offensive. Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the EDF flagship Normandy, watching as his fleet prepared for faster-than-light travel. Unlike the Imperial ship's purple glow, human vessels pulsed with a deep blue energy that bent space itself around them. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "The captured Imperial navigation data has been distributed to all commanders." Reed nodded, remembering how the Empire had arrogantly kept their stellar maps in easily crackable databases. "Begin Operation Thunderbolt. All ships execute their assigned missions." The human fleet split into 5 battle groups, each targeting different Imperial strongholds. Unlike the Empire's rigid battle formations, Earth's ships traveled in seemingly random patterns that made tracking them impossible. The first Imperial world to face humanity's counterattack was a major shipyard orbiting a red dwarf star. The defenders were still trying to understand how they'd lost contact with their main fleet when the human ships appeared inside their defensive perimeter. How did they get past the early warning systems? The Imperial commander demanded, his 4 eyes wide with panic. The answer came in the form of human ships using what appeared to be commercial freighter signatures, another lesson learned from Earth's own history of warfare. Earth's ships deployed their primary weapons, clouds of self-replicating nanites that devoured Imperial technology, while leaving civilian infrastructure untouched. Within hours, the mighty shipyard's defenses were reduced to inert metal, its weapons systems transformed into harmless sculptures. Meanwhile, at the Imperial Command Center 300 light-years away, chaos erupted as reports flooded in from multiple sectors. Human ships were appearing everywhere, using tactics that made no sense to Imperial military doctrine. They're attacking 12 systems simultaneously. An Imperial coordinator reported, his scales turning pale. "But that's impossible. No species can coordinate across such distances." What the Empire didn't know was that human ships carried quantum-entangled communication systems, allowing instant coordination across any distance, while Imperial forces relied on faster-than-light communications that still took hours to cross their territory. Earth's fleet operated as a single unified force. The second wave of Earth's attack targeted the Empire's production facilities. Rather than destroying them, human forces employed electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disabled Imperial technology. Special forces teams, using powered armor that the Empire had dismissed as science fiction, boarded and captured these facilities intact. "Sir," Reed's communication officer called out, "Imperial worlds are beginning to contact us directly. They're requesting protection from their own government." This was something else the Empire hadn't counted on. Humanity's Psychological Warfare Division had been broadcasting evidence of imperial corruption and oppression, translated into every language in the Empire. Worlds that had been peaceful subjects for generations were suddenly questioning their masters. Accept their requests, Reed ordered. Deploy peacekeeping forces as planned. The third phase of Operation Thunderbolt revealed another human innovation. Automated drum carriers that looked like debris fields until they activated. These carriers, scattered throughout Imperial space by advanced scouts, suddenly came to life, releasing swarms of combat drones that overwhelmed local defenses. Imperial commanders found themselves facing an enemy that broke every rule of warfare they knew. Humans used asteroids as weapons, converted civilian ships into warships within minutes, and employed strategies that seemed suicidal until they succeeded. They're not just fighting us, one Imperial analyst realized too late. They're dismantling our entire way of war. By the end of the first week, humanity had established control over 20% of Imperial space. Earth's ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking targets the Empire thought were secret and protecting worlds that asked for help. Admiral Reed reviewed the holographic map showing the progress of Operation Thunderbolt. The Empire's territory was lit up with thousands of blue dots representing human victories. They had studied every war in human history, learned from every mistake, and combined all that knowledge into a strategy that the peace-loving Empire couldn't comprehend. Send word to Earth, Reed ordered. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was just getting started. The Imperial capital world shook with activity as the legendary Phoenix fleet assembled in orbit. 10,000 ships of burning crimson, each one powered by artificial suns, gathered for what the Empire promised would be humanity's final defeat. This was the Empire's ultimate weapon, held in reserve for 10,000 years, never before needed. Grand Admiral Stone, the Empire's most decorated commander, watched his fleet with all four eyes glowing with determination. Unlike his predecessors, he had studied human warfare intensively after their first victories. He understood what they were facing. The humans expect us to be predictable, he addressed his command staff. So we will show them that the Empire can adapt. His tactical display showed the Phoenix fleet arranged not in traditional Imperial formations, but in patterns inspired by humanity's own naval history. On Earth, Admiral Reed received the reports of the Phoenix fleet's movement with growing concern. Their spies in Imperial space had warned them about this force, but seeing it in action was different. The Empire had finally unleashed its full might. They're not using standard Imperial tactics, his tactical officer reported, watching the enemy fleet's approach vectors. They're using our own strategies against us. The first clash between the Phoenix fleet and Earth's forces occurred near Alpha Centauri. Imperial ships, their hulls glowing with contained stellar fire, met humanity's blue-shifted vessels in a battle that lit up the space between stars. For the first time, humanity faced setbacks. The Phoenix fleet's weapons could burn through quantum shields, their artificial suns providing power levels that overwhelmed human defenses. 3 Earth battle groups were forced to retreat, their ships scared by weapons that could melt neutron stars. This is what true Imperial power looks like. Grand Admiral Stone broadcast across all frequencies as his fleet claimed its first victory. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. But he had made one critical mistake. He had given humanity time to analyze their defeat. In hidden bases across Earth's sphere of influence, scientists and military strategists worked frantically to adapt. The Phoenix fleet uses contained stars as power sources, one scientist reported to the War Council. But stars have weaknesses. They have physics we can exploit. Admiral Reed ordered an emergency refit of all Earth vessels. Within days, human ships were equipped with new weapons designed specifically to fight the Phoenix fleet. Gravitic lances that could disrupt the artificial stars powering Imperial ships. The second battle was different. When the Phoenix fleet attacked Earth's colony on Proxima, they found humans ready for them. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries. Target their containment fields, Reed ordered as his ships engaged the enemy. The new gravitic weapons fired, creating localized singularities that pulled at the Empire's artificial suns, disrupting their carefully maintained balance. Stone watched in horror as his first ships began to fail, their power sources destabilizing. "Impossible," he shouted. They couldn't have developed countermeasures so quickly. But they had. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to adapt, to learn, to change their entire way of fighting in days rather than decades. The battle raged for hours, space itself warping and twisting as two fundamentally different approaches to warfare clashed. The Phoenix fleet's raw power met humanity's endless innovation, and slowly the balance began to shift. "Their fleet is dividing," Reed's tactical officer reported. "They're trying to adapt to our tactics, but their ships aren't designed for the maneuvers they're attempting." Stone realized his mistake too late. He had tried to beat humanity at their own game, but the Phoenix fleet, for all its power, was still bound by Imperial engineering and doctrine. His attempts to copy human tactics only exposed his ships to more effective counterattacks. As the battle entered its final phase, humanity's superior adaptability proved decisive. The Phoenix fleet, pride of the Empire, was forced to retreat, leaving behind hundreds of ships with destabilized power cores. "Send word to the Imperial capital," Stone ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of first true defeat in his long career. "The Phoenix fleet has failed. The humans are still coming." On Earth, Admiral Reed watched the battle recordings, already planning the next phase of the war. The Empire had shown its ultimate weapon, and humanity had survived. Now, there would be no holding back. Deep within the Imperial Capital World's central planning complex, the High Command faced an uncomfortable truth. Status reports from across their territory painted a picture they had never imagined possible. The Empire's carefully structured industrial base was being outproduced by a single planet and its colonies. "Their production rates are impossible," declared Chief Industrial Minister Gray, his forearms trembling as he projected the latest figures. "They're manufacturing ships faster than we can destroy them." The holographic display showed Earth's industrial might in stark detail. Former Imperial factory worlds, captured by humans, had been transformed in weeks. What once took the Empire years to produce was now being completed in days. On Earth, the massive underground factories that had remained hidden from Imperial scans were operating at full capacity. Admiral Reed toured one such facility in the Australian outback, watching as automated systems constructed warships at a pace that would have seemed impossible months ago. "We learned from our own history," the facility's director explained as they watched a new destroyer take shape. "World War II taught us about mass production. Now we're applying those lessons to space warfare." The humans had transformed their entire society into a war machine, but unlike the Empire's rigid structure, Earth's production was decentralized, adaptive, and impossible to completely stop. Every defeat only led to faster adaptation. Every lost ship was replaced by two more with improved designs. In Imperial space, the first cracks in their 10,000-year-old order began to appear. Worlds that had watched humanity's industrial and military efficiency began to question their loyalty to the Empire. "The humans offer innovation, growth, and freedom," one planetary governor declared as his world seceded from the Empire. "They show us that our so-called perfect system is stagnant." The Empire's response was predictable. They sent ships to punish the rebellious world. But when their fleet arrived, they found human vessels already in orbit, protecting their new allies with shields and weapons that evolved with each engagement. "Their ships today aren't even the same designs they used last week," an Imperial admiral reported in frustration. "How can we fight an enemy that rebuilds their entire fleet every month?" The answer was becoming clear. They couldn't. The Empire's strength had always been its stability, its unchanging nature. Now that very strength had become its greatest weakness. Back on Earth, the War Production Council met to discuss the next phase. Holographic displays showed hundreds of new shipyards under construction throughout human-controlled space. Each one was designed to be independent, capable of adapting its production lines within hours to build whatever was needed. The Empire thought we would run out of resources, Reed addressed the Council. They didn't understand that humans have been preparing for this kind of total war for centuries. We just needed the right enemy to show us what we're capable of. The Empire's rigid command structure began to collapse under the strain. Worlds that had never questioned their rulers began to see alternatives. The humans didn't just bring superior military technology. They brought ideas about independence, innovation, and self-determination. Their society is infected with human concepts. The Imperial High Commander warned his council. Worlds are demanding rights and representation, ideas they learned from Earth's broadcasts. But it was too late to stop the spread of these ideas. The Empire's perfect order was breaking down in the face of humanity's chaos. Worlds that had been loyal for thousands of years began declaring independence, not to join Earth, but to forge their own paths. Let them go, Reed advised when asked about the independent worlds. Show them that we mean what we say about freedom and self-determination. This policy proved more devastating to the Empire than any weapon. Their worlds watched as newly independent planets prospered under human protection, free to develop their own societies and technologies. The Empire's breaking point wasn't just military or industrial, it was philosophical. Their entire worldview was being undone by a species they had dismissed as primitive barely a year ago. As the Empire's grip on its territory weakened, humanity's influence grew, not through conquest, but through something the Empire had never considered, the power of example. They had started this war thinking they were facing barbarians. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant whose greatest weapon wasn't its military might, but its ideas. In the Grand Council chamber of the Imperial Palace, silence fell as the human delegation entered. Admiral Reed led the small group, walking with quiet confidence through the vast hall where 10,000 years of imperial tradition hung heavy in the air. Above them, the Empire's remaining leadership watched from their elevated platforms, their four eyes blinking in synchronized patterns that betrayed their nervous state. The mighty Empire that had never known defeat was about to experience something entirely new. Peace negotiations where they weren't the dominant party. "We come with an offer," Reed began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Not demands, not ultimatums, but a genuine opportunity for both our civilizations." The Imperial High Commander, his scales dulled with stress, leaned forward. "You've destroyed our fleets, turned our worlds against us, and now you speak of opportunities." Reed activated a holographic display showing a new map of the galaxy. It highlighted dozens of independent worlds that had broken away from the Empire, forming their own alliances and governments. "The old order is gone," Reed explained. "But that doesn't mean everything must be lost. We're offering you a chance to be part of something new." The human proposal was both simple and revolutionary. The Empire would transform itself into a commonwealth of equal worlds, with Earth serving not as a conqueror, but as a guide and protector during the transition. "Your experience in maintaining peace across vast distances is valuable," Reed continued. "Combined with human innovation and adaptability, we could create something greater than either of us could achieve alone." In orbit above the Imperial capital, Earth's fleet hung like stars against the darkness. But they weren't arranged in battle formation. Instead, they were conducting rescue operations, helping worlds damaged in the conflict, and protecting trade routes that were already beginning to form between newly independent systems. "Look at what we've accomplished in 1 year." Reed gestured to the data showing the rapid recovery of worlds that had embraced human assistance. "Now imagine what we could do together, as allies instead of enemies." The Empire's leaders whispered among themselves, their translator devices turned off for privacy. But human intelligence could still understand their debate. They were realizing that Reed's offer gave them a way to survive with dignity. "You would allow us to maintain our cultural identity?" the High Commander asked carefully. "We insist on it," Reed replied. "Earth's strength comes from diversity, from the mixing of ideas and cultures. We don't want to destroy who you are. We want to help you grow into something more. The resolution that followed would reshape galactic civilization. The Empire would transform itself into the Galactic Commonwealth, with Earth as one of its founding members. Imperial worlds would be free to join, remain independent, or seek their own path. Your warning was correct, the High Commander admitted as he signed the peace accords. We should have run when we had the chance, but perhaps it's better that we didn't. Reed smiled, remembering the beginning of the conflict. Sometimes the best way to avoid war is to be completely prepared for it. And sometimes the best victory isn't destroying your enemy, but transforming them into an ally. As news of the peace spread across the galaxy, celebrations erupted on countless worlds. The rigid order of the Empire was giving way to a new age of exploration, innovation, and cooperation. On Earth, Admiral Reed stood in the same command center where the conflict had begun. The displays now showed trade routes instead of battle plans, diplomatic missions instead of military deployments. We warned them to run, his aide commented, but in the end, we taught them to walk beside us instead. The final reports showed the transformation already beginning. Imperial worlds were adopting human innovations while maintaining their own cultural identity. Human ships were being improved with Imperial technology. The galaxy was changing, growing, evolving. The war that began with a warning had ended with a promise of a future where the strengths of both civilizations would combine to create something greater than either could have imagined. As the first joint human-imperial research fleet prepared to explore beyond known space, Admiral Reed thought about how far they'd come. The Empire had never had war with humans before, and now they never would again. Instead, they would face the unknown together, ready for whatever challenges the universe had in store for them. The end.